After more than 2 decades in the classroom, I've made more than my fair share of mistakes, and some of them have been very hard learned. Today, I want to share with you just 8 out of the very many of them that I used to do that I no longer do anymore. And better yet, what I do instead. Let's go. Mistake number 1, prioritizing content over connection. Mostly out of fear of what other teachers would think, of what parents would think, of what I thought of myself. It was putting what we need to learn over my real connection with students. And I didn't really realize that it's the connection that kicks all of this off. Judge Curio says that it is only through the heart that we reach the mind of students. And so that's what it took me a little while to get. It was like an investment in students that I didn't know if it would pay off. And I think that's where that fear came from. But I, of course, no longer do that. I have a whole book on this, and I talk about this all the time in videos. This idea that it is relationships first, that if education's only ever about the students, we have to start with relationships. Not just because it's fun or because it feels nicer. It actually works. It will help you to help your students to be more successful in your class and in life by connecting to their heart first. Number 2, giving too many chances without any sort of plan. What I mean by this is this idea of someone does something inappropriate in class. A student is acting out of pocket. They did something they're not supposed to be doing. They're off task, and I keep going, I'm not going to tell you again. I'm not going to say it again. You need to calm down. You need to stop doing that. You need to put that down. You need to get back in your seat. Now look, grace is important with students. We are teaching young people. They are quite literally not fully developed yet. So having grace is important, but not having a plan in place, you're not being someone who is of their word. There needs to be a structure. There needs to be a system. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I erroneously thought was that my being wishy-washy like that was more about the student. It was 100% about me. It was my inability to put my foot down, to really mean what I say and say what I mean. And the more I was able to build out systems, policies, procedures, routines, rhythms in my classroom, I was able to know where we were going, why we were going there, and exactly how we were going to do it. And if a student veered off, all I was doing was still giving grace, but now I'm giving grace with guardrails. And then if this is something you need help with, we have resources available for this. We have a classroom management workshop that is the most extensive workshop I've ever done in this particular area. I'll leave the link for that in the description below. Mistake number 3 is ignoring the little wins. I would often look at a student's grade on the test. Look at their grade at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, and not as a way to measure student growth necessarily. That was a way that I measured my growth as a teacher. And what I didn't realize was that if a student starts out with a 4% and ends with a 40%, that's a huge jump for them. That is a win that needs to be celebrated. Some of our values are to be nice and work hard. So if I see a student being nice or working hard, I need to celebrate that at every turn, because if I don't, I can't just expect that someone else is doing it. And sure, I want kids to do nice stuff because they want to do nice stuff. But extrinsic validation works. So start this tomorrow. Go into school. If you see a kid being nice, working hard, or exemplifying any of the other values that you or your school have, make sure to say something, because those little wins really do add up and change the culture or the climate of your school, or change that student forever. Number 4 is trying to be a martyr. It wasn't like I was asked to be a martyr. I just decided that's what I was going to be. So you want to give me that extra class? You want to take away my planning period? I didn't get any sleep last night. I called it dedication. And now I realize it is just self-sabotage. Teachers, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And there were years where I taught my 5 classes, 5 different periods. I also took on the Shakespeare elective. I also took on the school play. I also took on the school newspaper that nobody read anyway, so that was a real good use of time. I started a community garden in the back of the school that year, and because we were outside gardening already, we started a beautification team that did things outside of school. All of my lessons were to the nth degree like they always are. It was class trips and speakers and all the things that you've known me for, but it was too much. And when you say yes to anything, you innately have to start saying no to other things in your life. There's just not enough time. So that meant I was saying no to time with my wife, no to dinners with my family, no to coming home early and giving my kids a bath and taking care of them, or just having time in lunch where I wasn't teaching an extra class, but now I can sit with students and just chat and build those relationships that I talked about in number 1. All that, by saying no to things, it allowed me to say yes to so much more. And what I realized is that Mr. Rogers' line is so true, that to be simple and deep is so much better than to be wide and complex. Mistake number 5, letting toxic energy slide. And what I mean by this is a kid walks by and says something negative. They're talking about you behind your back, or a staff member is doing the same thing. Because we know staff members are grown, but we know that they don't always act that way. What I didn't realize in those moments is that when you're silent in those moments, you're giving permission and you're teaching people that it's okay to talk like this about me. And what I need to do is not pick a fight with everyone, but I need to show folks, I need to understand that as an educator, as a person, right, as a human being, we teach people how to treat us. So now, if a student has an issue, I don't try and pick a problem. I'm looking for solutions. So I'll address it, say, hey, I heard that this was what was happening, or this is what's going on, or this is what was said. And I want you to know that your success is my number one thing in life, in the school anyway. And so I want you to be successful, but you can't be successful if we're at odds. Can we talk about this? Do you want to share what's going on? And then I just actively listen. I don't fill the space. If it gets quiet or awkward, I don't speak back. I let them say all the things, and then I thoughtfully respond. And the same thing with teachers. The people you teach with, you will potentially be with for so much longer than you will with your students. So really, showing folks that you can't talk trash on me, you're not going to talk behind my back, you're not going to say things to kids and then let it get back to me without me addressing it. And why? Because I want the kids to be successful. And to be successful, we have to teach as a part of a community. This is a team activity. And we're going to be together for 10, 20, 30 years sometimes. And so I'd love to do that as a real team. And if you have an issue with that, or someone doesn't let that go, you got to take it to human resources or somewhere else in your school that is a higher level of staff than I am, because it's that important. That is how you fight against teaching in a toxic environment. Number 6 is not delegating enough. I wanted to do everything on my own all the time. From bulletin boards to cleaning up to organizing stuff, I just didn't ask for help. And I think part of that is how I grew up. And part of it is how I thought teachers always did stuff, so I should do it too. But what I didn't realize also was that students love ownership. I just didn't offer it to them. Now I delegate. I won't say everything, because there's some things that you can't not do. But whether it's grading or organizing or cleaning, communicating things, everything from wiping off my whiteboard to taking books back to the library, I have students do it and they love it. I've done this to such a degree that every year I have a teaching assistant that is a student from a higher grade that comes back, sits with me for a period a day, and they can do things like grade multiple choice questions, update your classroom library login, run things back to the office for you. I can really get a lot of stuff done for you, and it gives them ownership. It lets them know that this is our classroom. And sometimes I even pay them in candy and donuts. Mistake number 7, planning in isolation. I think I said this in a video recently, but it was this idea where I didn't ever collaborate with anyone else. And so I think in my last video, I talked about collaborating with folks in my own subject matter, but I think you could take this a way bigger step out. I have done projects where I've worked with the history department because we were learning, reading a story that took place during a certain time period. And so the history teacher built something into that as well. You can have the art department create art around that work that you're doing right now in class as well. I find is that sometimes when I create things with someone from the arts department, they have a different outlook on what they think is fun, interesting, or meaningful. And I do that with a lot of different teachers. So some folks help me to really focus in on data. Some folks, it's about the learning experience. Some folks, it's about creating something explosive and incredible and fun. So look for those people in your school that if you don't feel like a particularly creative person, tap in with someone. If you don't feel like a particularly fun person or engaging person, or you have all the fun ideas in the world, but you have a really hard time synthesizing that down into an actual plan, look for those folks in your school or online. You can go to our Facebook group, which I'll link in the description below as well. It's a great place to connect with folks that can fill the gaps that you have as an educator to make your lessons, your classroom that much better. And before I jump into number 8, I want to let you know that I have a brand new resource, the Odyssey Home. You don't have to read the Odyssey to do this. This is for use for any grade between, I'd say, late elementary all the way up to 12th grade. It's a series of end of the year activities, projects, and tasks that is going to take back the end of your year. I can't stand the slow dying that a school year has sometimes. So I created something that is going to be meaningful for you and your students. You can use it as an extra credit project, some end of the year fun, a way to celebrate the end of your school year. Everything in the resource is something that you can edit. There are scripts to walk you through every blessed part. What I wanted to do was take the work away from you to have you end the year with joy and enthusiasm instead of burnout. This resource is what I've created for you. You'll find the link in the description below. Hope you love it. It's what I wish existed when I started teaching. Number 8, this is a big one. Grading for behavior. I used to give students daily behavior points, and I'm not even necessarily against this. In some classes, I realize it still works. I realize it works for students, which is the biggest thing. This is a topic I even made a video about years ago. I haven't taken it down because I think it still works for a lot of folks. But what I realized at some point was that I wanted my students' grades rather, to be based on the mastery of the content and not on their behavior. And what I also saw was that if I was holding students accountable for their work, right? I don't do late work. I don't do makeup work unless you were sick or there was an extenuating circumstance. But if I'm holding kids accountable for their behavior in class, their behavior was going to help or hurt their grade anyway, because they were either getting stuff done because they were on point, or if they're not on point, even after multiple reminders to get on point, it was going to hurt their grade because they weren't getting the work done anyway. So if we have an assignment that goes out on Monday and it's due on Wednesday, and I have a student that was goofing off the whole week and didn't have it done on Wednesday, then guess what? They got a 0. Their behavior already impacted their grade. So I didn't need to double down on that grade by giving them points for whether or not they were doing something. And honestly, giving points based on behavior, or really, let's be honest, on being quiet and seeming focused, gives kids points for the wrong thing. What I saw was that quiet kids in class that weren't doing work, but were just being quiet, were getting points for that. And then it was helping them to pass class because they were not absurd every day. It's not a true picture of what learning is, and it doesn't really help my students or reward my students who are engaged and doing the work every day. But if I take this back to grace for a moment, especially for myself, I realize that mistakes are part of the job, but the magic is in what we do with them. Please drop it in the chat. I'd love to know, what is something you used to do in your classroom that you no longer do? I think it'll give all of us this sense that, look, we are teachers, but we are learners also. We're constantly learning and growing, and I'm glad that we can do that work together. Here is a video that YouTube has deemed worthy of you watching, and a copy of my book, which you should grab for yourself or for a teacher that you love. That's it this time, gang. Peace.